Okay, I'm just going to grab some water and then we'll get started. Just letting it go to give people a chance to show up. So be right back. Hello, everybody. Hope that you all had a great week. It's a holiday here where I live on the Monday, so that means 3-day weekend. However, it's like freezing rain outside in May, so it is what it is. Anyways, I have a show for you guys today. This whole thing is completely like insane. There's a lot of stuff we have to cover today. I'll see how much I can get through. We'll try. This might go faster than I thought. So I actually did show prep. I'm trying to improve the quality of my content. So there's actually a show I put together. It does take a lot longer. I think it'll be a better product and it's easier for me, but it just takes some time. So please like the video, subscribe, hit that little bell, share on Twitter or whatever. That would all be very much appreciated. And even just comment. It's nice to know that somebody finds value in this and finds it interesting. So I will be looking at the chat in between slides, I think. I think that would probably be the best compromise so I don't get too distracted while we're actually going through this. I am drinking a mocha coffee shot, I guess. Okay, so I built up this show enough to completely insane levels. Let's go. So the dimensional merge has occurred, ladies and gentlemen. The dimensional merge, for those of you who don't know the deep autistic lore of the internet, is something that Chris Chan thought was going to happen, where Quickvale and his entire fantasy world was going to converge on each other. And there was going to be the dimensional merge. Quickvale was going to become real. The internet was going to transition into IRL. And it looks like that happened. It's not even like the Marvel Cinematic Universe anymore. It's not even like a bad early access video game. We have reached sector levels of nonsense. There's a lot of stuff to cover during this. So, for those of you who don't remember Internet Blood Sports, affectionately known as IBS, this was a thing from a couple years ago wherein rather than have like normal debates, like they used to, you would basically just get a bunch of autistic people to just scream at each other for amusement. And that was Internet Blood Sports. And out of that grew this entire culture of like people running 24-hour ops. That's where like the term 24-hour ops comes from. People hacking each other, people trying to frame each other, all this drama and backbiting and stuff. And it basically became like an internet version of professional wrestling. So we've reached that point. Now, before we get into it, I have to show this because this was very traumatic. So I wanted to start off by paying tribute to Keir Stormfront Starmer. Keir Stormfront Starmer decided to take action. Crime is out of control in the UK, and he decided to ban ninja swords. Yes, this is a real tweet. Yes, Keir Starmer actually posted this. I know I've talked about it in the past, but I haven't put it in an actual video. So they're banning ninja swords. So this applies to ninjados. Does this apply to wakizashis, tantos, katanas? I don't know. And I don't think Stormfront Starmer knows either. And this is happening and I didn't really have time to cover this, but there is a literal biblical plague that is hitting Birmingham right now because all the trash men are on strike. So trash is just piling up in the streets, and giant rats have started to show up. And the giant rats are just attacking people. And that is the situation. That doesn't matter, though. The real issue is banning ninja swords. And I'm just going to quote a great American hero. Muhammad Ali. I ain't got no quarrel with the Russians. No Russian ever called me a ninja. If anyone gets that, I can't say the actual quote because it involves the N-bomb. The original quote, for those of you who don't know, is Muhammad Ali was being asked why he wouldn't go to fight in Vietnam, but he said, I ain't got no quarrel with the Vietnamese. No Vietnamese ever called me an N-bomb. So I just kind of wanted to throw that in. Okay, so we have a palate cleanser before we start. Just something kind of positive to get things going. So Trump had a trip to Saudi Arabia, and I gotta admit, it went very well. Him and MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, get along really good. MBS is also good friends with Putin. The interesting thing that Saudi Arabia is doing, particularly under MBS, who's really trying to modernize the country, but also the other Gulf monarchies, is they're kind of trying to take this position as being kind of the center of the world, at least diplomatically. Because it is the Middle East, so it's the literal center of the world, but they are developed countries that are not part of the collective West. And by and large, they have pretty good relations with America, with Russia, with China. So if you notice a lot lately, if there's going to be a big international conference, it often will go and happen in the Gulf states. That's one of, I think it's Machiavelli's dictums maybe that was from the Rules of Power, to make yourself indispensable. So Trump gave what I thought was a really good speech. We're just going to watch a clip or two of it.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly. And it's something only you could do. You achieved a modern miracle, the Arabian way. That's a good way. Today, the Gulf nations have shown this entire region a path towards safe and orderly societies with improving quality of life, flourishing economic growth, expanding personal freedoms, and increasing responsibilities on the world stage. After so many decades of conflict, finally it is within our grasp to reach the future that generations before us could only dream about, a land of peace, safety, harmony, opportunity, innovation, and achievement right here in the Middle East. So beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing that's happening. I guess, the people that are here can't even really appreciate it because you see it happening, and it's when you come to a place that you haven't seen in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years that it's even more incredible. When I left office just over 4 years ago, that future seemed almost impossible, what you've done. Together we had obliterated the killers of ISIS. We wiped them out, tried to heal the divide, united the nation, imposed unprecedented sanctions on her. They were unable to...
Anyways, so that's part of it. So I'm not the biggest fan of Saudi Arabia or the Gulf states. And yes, as Sonic Echo is pointing out, they got rich from selling oil. The reason I played that clip was I think that's the most blatant that Trump's ever actually called out the neocons. And so I think that's a positive step forward. Is Trump saying, yeah, we need to stop just lecturing you. We need to stop trying to impose liberalism on you. Even if he was definitely gilding the lily a bit and kind of sucking up to the audience, I think that is a massive improvement over Biden. I think was all I was was the point I was trying to make. I think Trump understands, at least when he's sober, that. So they've also announced they're restoring normal diplomatic relations with Syria. I don't need to play that clip, but all the sanctions are being lifted. So, I mean, that's, I think, another big W for Trump. There's no reason to keep sanctioning Syria. Hopefully the people there can... I mean, their country's probably always going to be not great, but it can only help getting rid of the crippling sanctions. And then Trump was able to get over $1 trillion in investment from the Saudis. So, and there are other Middle Easterners. So to me, I think that's a successful trip. Okay. Once again, I'm not trying to praise unduly praise. I'm just saying I think that was smart actual diplomacy in a way that we didn't see under Biden. So getting into our main show. When Trump met Zelensky, or Trump the Tsundere, the last month or so has seen something approximating a retarded soap opera or poorly made teenage girl film. The drama started with the meltdown in the Oval Office over the last 2 months and has been a constant mixture of Trump breaking up with Zelensky and then getting back together with him. I'm not going to go through all of just the insanity that's been going on, because honestly, I tried to follow it and I couldn't. More or less on a near daily basis, Trump has been posting on Truth Social and saying, we're going to walk away from this. If there's no agreement, 24 hours, we're gone. They paused aid on Ukraine. Then they unpaused the aid on Ukraine. And then he called Zelensky a dictator. And now Zelensky's his best friend again. There was a case where Rubio came out and said, if they don't get a ceasefire in 3 days, then we're going to walk. And then Trump posted on Truth Social that the next night and completely contradicted it. So basically Trump's just Zelensky, you baka. I love you, but I hate you, but I love you, but I hate you. So we don't know if Trump is going to like break up with Zelensky or he's going to stand by his man. So yeah, I think this has happened at least 4 times over the course of this. But being like actually serious for a moment, Trump is making the situation way worse. So the only plan that the coalition of the willing and Zelensky have left is to bring America indirectly into the war. That's really the only possible way they have to get something resembling a win out of this. They don't have the resources to do it. They don't have the soldiers to do it. The U.S. theoretically still might be able to do that. So what they believe and what Trump is reinforcing is they believe that the U.S. will not let the Ukraine fall to the Russians. That regardless of what Trump says, regardless of how much Trump complains, that he is inevitably going to save them in the end. That he's going to like pretend to walk away, but then go, oh, I have to come back and save him. Like, I don't know, a scene in an action movie or something like that. And Trump's mixed signals, I think, show that that's a very real possibility. So I think Zelensky and the Europeans don't want to negotiate for part of that reason. Because Trump's given the impression that he won't actually walk away. So the TLDR, no one has any idea what's going on, and the situation changes dramatically on a daily basis. I'm just going to take a look at the chat. The Qatari gave Trump an airplane invested in Boeing. I haven't taken a look at that yet. That's kind of cool. Describing Trump as a tsundere is so funny. This stream is Kino. Well, I want to ask a question. Do I at least have more showmanship than DSP and Rich of Review Tech USA? I know I'm not like PPP levels, but I like to think I can be a bit more entertaining than those two. So, this brings us to the... By the way, did you guys like this format? I know part of it is me reading, but it's just... This thing's complicated, and I find this easier to kind of stay on topic. So, let's talk about the MacGuffin, a.k.a. the mineral rights deal. So, as with everything to do with Trump, no one really knows what's even going on. That's why I call this Schrodinger's war. If people want, I'll do a separate video on this, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that Trump has all the traits of a executive. Well, I mean, he's trying to run America like the CEO of a company. And a lot of the characteristics that I find CEOs and executives have are things that Trump embodies. Like I'm trying to think of a couple. Like one of them is your opinion is always the last person you talk to. It's always the last person that you talk to. It's you don't think about logistics or what it actually takes to do something. If something is like hard, you try to find the path of least resistance. So let's see here. So we've had this whole thing. It's gone through so many different versions. I don't think we've ever actually seen a full draft of it. Allegedly, it was signed. But can you sign an agreement that doesn't exist? That's a question I never thought I'd be asking myself. So I've been covering this off and on. The proposals have ranged from Ukraine being reduced to an economic colony of the United States to debt slavery. There was one proposal where all the aid was going to be turned into a loan, and that basically the U.S. was going to extract all of Ukraine's mineral wealth for the next 50 years until they got all the money back while charging them interest. So that's kind of the narrative, is that how this would benefit Ukraine is that because America wants to keep them around so they can keep stealing money from them, them becoming a debt slave to the U.S. would mean that the U.S. would defend them so that their debt slave wouldn't be taken away. I think was basically what the plan was. The whole thing just looked like a cash grab to me. So the final version makes even less sense. There is some weird investment fund that both sides will be putting money in. They will be used for further resource exploitation in Ukraine's reconstruction. The military equipment counts towards the U.S.'s contribution to this fund. So what is this fund? Why does it exist? I don't even know. The deal seems to vastly favor Ukraine. I mean, once again, does this thing even exist? I don't even know. I think the U.S. companies get preferential treatment at developing minerals, but the U.S. doesn't actually get the revenue from the development of the minerals that goes into this investment fund. So the only explanation that I've heard that makes any kind of sense when it comes down to the whole investment fund grift is that it is just that, it's a grift. The whole purpose of the investment fund, and Alexander Mercouris made this point, is the US, Ukraine, and EU realize they're gradually losing this war. So they have to basically just steal as much money as they can before the clock runs out. So we're going to set up this huge shady fund that no one understands that's going to take money from some place and put it in some other place. It's not very clear. And the idea is just embezzle as much money as you possibly can before the war ends. So I just wanted to give a little bit of closure as to this whole thing. Who's winning out in this deal? Whoever's getting paid off by it. So probably the military-industrial complex, the Ukrainian government, and the EU. Okay, so this brings us to the funeral scene. We're heading back into the drama now. So Trump was in Italy on April 26th to attend the funeral of Pope Francis. He wasn't even going to be there for a full day, and he wasn't really planning on conducting much business. So he was ambushed by Starmer and Macron with the support of the Curia, and they forced him to meet with Zelensky. Like, he had to meet with Zelensky because Zelensky was also there. They had to sit down. They had to hash this thing out, settle the beef, and they met for 15 minutes. But that 15-minute meeting made all the difference, I guess. So it is kind of like when, ironically enough, another Pope Leo in Rome negotiated with Attila the Hun. The entire conflict was immediately resolved. Now, that's kind of a cool story, if memory serves, is Attila the Hun reached the gates of Rome, and Pope Leo I went out and treated with him, and there was a conversation, and then Attila the Hun turned away from the city. So that's kind of a cool... no one really knows what he said to him exactly, but that's kind of a big story. I didn't include the scene of I forgot to put in a picture of the actual funeral, because in the front row, they put Zelensky in the front row, despite him, I don't know, not being from an important country and not being Catholic, and he just like stared at Trump for the entirety of the thing. And then we also had Suit Jacket Gate, where I don't know. Yeah, it's. I mean, you can say a lot of things about Trump. You can't say he doesn't produce iconic pictures. So, before we get into the, so that happened. I don't really know what came out of it. Just a little interlude. This is just something that I have forgotten to mention in the past. I thought would be good. So, so Russia was banned from the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. So this is what the museum director said. It's the anniversary of the liberation of the camp. We remember the victims, but we also celebrate liberty here. Museum director Siwinski said in a statement, "It's difficult to imagine the presence of Russia, which clearly does not understand the value of liberty." Yeah, it's hard to imagine the presence of Russia at a celebration of the liberation of Auschwitz. Now, Vucic made a good point about this. He goes, So the people who ran Auschwitz are allowed to be there. The Germans are allowed to be there, but the Russians who liberated Auschwitz are not allowed to be there. Um, and then the Auschwitz Museum said Putin had a similar sick megalomania and lust for power as the Nazis. So if you look at the a lot of the stuff about that happened at this time period, they were very vague as to who actually liberated the camp. It's just this kind of a cover up. But anyways, okay. So we have the Russian Victory Day Parade, aka the Gathering of the Brotherhood of Evil. So Victory Day is a big day in Russia. I think people like we can make fun of the whole denazification and like the anti-fascist rhetoric and stuff that people say, but the World War II, or what they call the Great Patriotic War, was a major national trauma. Tens of millions of people died. Large portions of the country were basically burnt to a cinder, just raped, pillaged. It took a long time to recover from it. Everybody in Russia knew somebody who died during the war. It's a very big deal there. It's something I don't know if it necessarily translates. In Commonwealth countries, we have Remembrance Day, which is the end of World War One, and that's, I think, a fairly big thing in Britain. It's not really a big thing here, but it's very large there. So this was going to be the 80th anniversary of their victory in the Great Patriotic War. So quite a few big names showed up, mostly Russia's friends, but some big names. Xi, Lula, Vucic, who is the president of Serbia, Robert Fico of Slovakia, also the leaders of Vietnam and Venezuela. Now, Modi was going to attend, but yeah, some stuff happened. So some stuff definitely happened. Modi was kind of too busy to attend, and for once, that was not an excuse. That was not like, because you always have like the fake "I'm too sick to attend." I think in the case of Modi, he had some stuff he had to deal with. That was a little more urgent than the parade. If you haven't watched the parade, you might enjoy it. At least the mechanized part of it's pretty cool. But soldiers from a lot of the countries here participated in it, which is kind of neat. And yeah, so before this, so Victory Day, basically everybody was invited to Victory Day. Anybody who wanted to come to Victory Day could come to Victory Day, including Europeans. So Orban was going to come, and then they didn't go. Then he decided, probably wisely, to not go. However, Robert Fico decided that he was going to go. And so this is that is Vucic, by the way, just mogging Putin. I think Vucic is like 6'7" or something, and Putin's not very tall. I just put that in because I thought it was funny. So the EU basically just threatened Vucic and Robert Fico in a very mafia-like way. That seems to be how the EU operates these days. We must ensure that they understand that certain decisions come with a price, and the consequence is they will not join the European Union, said the Secretary General of the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Serbia is going to be not allowed to join the EU because of reasons. because they went to a Victory Day parade. And Serbia has always had very good relations with Russia. They've always been allies. They've always been very close culturally, religiously. And as Vucic said, I mean, the Red Army is who liberated Serbia in World War II. So it's perfectly appropriate for him to be there. So it's... And Fico got really pissed off because they threatened him too. And he's like, look, I'm part of the EU, but we're a sovereign country. If I want to go to a parade, I'm going to go to a parade. Just screw off. Like, just fuck off, basically. So messages are already emerging from the... this was just a quote. They said that countries that travel to Moscow will face consequences. In Serbia's case, they're not going to be allowed to join the EU. I couldn't find the specifics, but I consulted a source familiar with the situation, and Ursula called Fico and said, we're going to finish the job. The first 5 bullets may not have killed you, but the next 5 will. Now, obviously that's a joke, but I couldn't find it. I'd seen it, but I didn't bookmark it. They threatened Fico too. They said there was going to be like severe consequences for Slovakia or whatever. It's all very, very Giesler. So, Zelensky decided that he was going to insert himself into this. And he decided he was going to Putin Max, and he was going to do a villain speech of his own. So you had all these people who were, all these world leaders who were going to show up in Russia, in Moscow, to go to this thing. Yeah, Konstantin points out, Fico put out a really strong letter where he just completely, like, destroyed Ursula and co. So Zelensky just started to make suggestions. Once again, a very mafia, very passive-aggressive, very Giesler way, where he said, Ukraine is not responsible for the safety of foreign officials traveling to Moscow for May 9th victory parade. The Ukrainian leader said his country cannot provide security assurances to foreign officials planning to visit Russia. It claimed that, and then he claimed that Russia was going to do false flag operations at the Victory Day parade and blame Ukraine. So it's just setting it up. He said, our position is very simple. We cannot take responsibility for what happens on the territory of the Russian Federation. They are the ones providing your security, and we will not be offering any guarantees. So a lot of people thought that sounded like a threat because it was a threat. It's like the, you know, it sure would be a shame if your store burned down, or I can't really do that, but you give me the fucking protection money or I burn down your pizzeria or something like that. It's just it's just this mob thing. It's just them threatening them. And it looked like for a while that Zelensky was like hinting that he was going to bomb the parade, that he was going to drone strike it and try to kill Putin or some of the foreign leaders who were there. And he was just going off on like all of this. And I mean, you can look it up. But yeah, he was just going off about this constantly. She was furious. I couldn't find Xi's statement, but she was absolutely like white, like red with rage. Over that whole thing, which I can understand why. So, like the week before, the days before, the Ukrainians launched hundreds of drones to attack airports all over Russia. And I think like Vucic had to like go through Azerbaijan, and like 60,000 passengers were stranded. And yeah, so they just launched this like big attack on all the airports in Russia. I don't think it actually killed anyone, but it massively delayed all the flights. And it was like an intimidation. It was an intimidation tactic. It was to try to convince them to not go to the Victory Day parade. Once again, she and co were not abused by that. Some people might say that this is bad optics, that threatening people and then semi-making good on your threats to kill world leaders at like a diplomatic event is not a good idea. Konstantin says that Ukraine intimidated Sevastopol into canceling their parade. So this was like Zelensky's villain plan. I think his name's Ben Hodges, some ex-US general. And like he said, yeah, Ukraine should bomb the Victory Day parade. He should just kill everybody there. Like we should just it's just like, okay, I'm sure that's going to work. Even if they did kill Putin, I feel like the Russians might use nuclear weapons at that point. And they will, whatever remaining gloves there are will come off. And it will just be complete and total slaughter. So, yeah. Okay. So, in the aftermath of this and the big Victory Day parade, we have, and okay, we're gonna have the cringe. I'm just gonna give you a warning before the cringe warning. So we came up with this idea of a 30-day ceasefire. I think Trump came up with it, and it's like we need to have a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. We just need to have that, and then that'll resolve everything. And Putin's like, no, we're not going to do that because the 30-day ceasefire is definitely just an attempt to freeze the conflict, and you're going to keep extending it until the war basically peters out and we're stuck here for the next 50 years. So they got the coalition of the willing. They're still calling themselves that. Macron, Merz, Starmer, and Tusk took a train together to Kiev, and we will be looking at the cringe photos from that in a second. But Trump decided that he was going to support them, and this was during one of Trump's tsundere phases. You know what is even weirder is Trump doesn't drink. A lot of his stuff might make more sense if he just got drunk and was post-country social. But Trump does not drink alcohol, so it makes things weirder. So yeah, so after Victory Day parade, they had this. Part of what made the 30-day ceasefire come about is Putin announced a 3-day ceasefire during Victory Day to give the troops a chance to rest. The Russian army gets pissed off about this, but Putin often will declare ceasefires, like on Christmas or Easter or special or holidays like that, in order to give the troops a chance to rest. The army gets pissed off about it because it keeps interrupting the war. So they said, well, we can't just have a 3-day ceasefire. We need to have a 30-day ceasefire. So let's read Trump's Truth Social post. Talks with Russia, Ukraine continue. I can't do a Trump voice, so I'm going to try. The U.S. calls for ideally a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. Hopefully an acceptable ceasefire will be observed, and both countries will be held accountable for respecting the sanctity of these direct negotiations. If the ceasefire is not respected, the U.S. and its partners will impose further sanctions. Oh, that's cool. So if Ukraine doesn't respect the ceasefire, that means that they're going to impose sanctions on Ukraine. That's good. Thousands of young soldiers are dying on a weekly basis, and everybody should want it to stop. I do, and the United States of America does also. As president, I will stay committed to securing peace between Russia and Ukraine, together with the Europeans, and a lasting peace it will be. This ceasefire must ultimately build towards a peace agreement. It can all be done very quickly, and I will be available on a moment's notice if my services are needed. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So So like I said, Macron, Merz, Stammer, Tusk, Ursula, and co. They're like, look, Trump is giving us cover. Trump's calling for this ceasefire. We're going to go and have a meeting of the coalition of the willing in Kiev with Zelensky, and they wound up issuing a ultimatum that Putin had to agree to the we'll get into it, but I'm just going to warn you guys, we have some like epic cringe coming up. Like, you don't even know what we're about to witness. So here's the first cringe. So they had the like it unironically, let me see. They called this the Bravery Express. They called the trip I couldn't find a good image of it, but they called the train that these three assholes took to Kiev the Bravery Express. And like look at this. Like I don't know, like they're trying to wear casual clothes and look like normal human beings. Macron looks like some kind of like drunk 1970s rock star. Starmer, I don't even know what Starmer is like is wearing. Like, no, sorry, not Starmer. Starmer looks like a turtle. Mertz is like has one of the most cursed physiognomies I've ever seen. And just a side note, there was the tissue gate where there was a tissue on the table, but a bunch of people said that it was cocaine. It looks like a tissue to me, but like they had a video clip and Macron like picked it up and ran away and like hid it part of the way through. This is like their attempt to look like normal people, and it's just really bad. Okay, same picture again. Sorry if some of these are kind of some of these got really pixelated. This is the three of them staring at the camera. Wow, these got really badly pixelated. I'm sorry. This is the three guys standing at the you know what? Let me just okay, well, we'll go through these and then I'm sorry, these got really badly stretched. This is like one of the cringe ones. There was a bunch of these of like the boys walking together. Like the boys are ready for action. They're going to go do this. And it's just so awkward. And then we got like this, like with the team all together. And like the fake smiling and like the excessive gestures. Alex Christoforou compared this to an episode of Friends. Here's another one. They took a lot of these pictures. Starmer does not look like a human being. Then we got this, where they're all like this photo op of them sitting around the table, looking at documents. It should be noted that so Starmer, I think his approval rating is negative 30%. Macron's approval rating is negative 40%. Tusk's approval rating is negative 10%. And Merz is widely despised by everyone in Germany, including most of the German political class. Think he's an aggressive, antisocial asshole. So it's like the coalition of the fucking losers. We got this. I don't know. Merz just seems so awkward and out of place. Like, that's them with the candles. That's another like epic. Look at this badass. So it's like an action movie. They're walking in. Got another one. Yeah. So that was the coalition of the willing. If people want, I can go and try to pull up some better quality photos. But hopefully you kind of got the point I was trying to put across. So the coalition of the willing 2.0 negotiated with themselves. And they came up with the idea of a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. If Russia violated the ceasefire that they didn't agree to, there would be massive new sanctions, the 17th sanction package. Russia was given a 2-day ultimatum. Russia had to accept the ceasefire that Russia agreed to, even though Russia never agreed to the ceasefire. It's just going to have to do it. I'm going to be honest, and I'll use the word. The Bravery Express is one of the gayest things I've ever heard. I can't even. I can't even. So they announced this ultimatum to Putin that he had to do what they told him to do, or else, I don't know, they'd have the sanction package number 16 or 17, and it's actually going to do something now. So Putin decided to, well, I mean, he is a master of judo, so he pulled some judo.
Несмотря ни на что.
Oh, oops. Let me just... One sec. There we go.
Несмотря ни на что, предлагаем киевским властям возобновить переговоры, прерванные ими в конце 2022 года.
By the way, do you want me to read out loud when they're doing subtitles? I'll try reading out the subtitles. Just that might be easier for people who are just listening to this. Despite everything, we propose that the Kiev authorities resume the negotiations they interrupted at the end of 2022.
Предлагаем киевским властям возобновить переговоры, прерванные ими в конце 2022 года.
To resume direct negotiations, and I emphasize without any preconditions.
Прямые переговоры, причем, подчеркну, без всяких предварительных условий. Начать предлагаем.
We propose beginning without delay the next Thursday, May 15th in Istanbul.
Без промедления уже в следующие Стамбуле.
Where the talks were previously held and where they were interrupted. So yeah, to have direct negotiations in Istanbul. So that is what what Putin said. So that was interpreted as Putin challenged Zelensky personally to meet him in Istanbul to talk face to face. Now, Putin did not say that. Okay, let's just take a look at Starmer, Macron, Zelensky, coalition of the... Just while I have the things switched. Yeah, here we go. Here's some slightly better quality images of some of this. Like, oh... It's so cringe. So we got that. Okay, let's see. I'm just trying to see. There's some more cringy pick. Like, they're the worst pick. They're just such, like, it's so forced, and none of these guys are like human beings. They're all just these fucking mass-produced, like, rootless, cosmopolitan, neoliberal, like, freaks who are pretending to be human beings. And it's creepy. And, like, look at this. Like, this was something that they, like, paid someone to put together. So they put this together. The coalition of the willing, supporting Ukraine, securing our future. We got them all sitting here. It's just, oh, it's rough, man. It's rough. Okay, so back to what we're covering. There we go. Okay, so Putin proposed that. So Zelensky was going to say no, because Zelensky is 100% against negotiations. However, Trump, as the tsundere, as we established earlier, decided that he was going to intervene directly. He was going to make a Truth Social post. A Truth Social post. So this is what he said. President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. Ukraine should agree to this immediately. At least they will be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible. And if it is not, European leaders and the US will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly. I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin, who's too busy celebrating the victory of World War II, which could not have been won, not even close, without the United States of America. Have the meeting now. So Trump... So the whole coalition, the willing meeting to do this ultimatum was started because of a Truth Social post. Now there's another Truth Social post in which Zelensky's boss is telling him that he's going to have to meet. He's going to have to go to this event. Now, it should be noted that, once again, Putin did not say he was going to go to Istanbul. He didn't say he was going to go there in person. What he meant was he was going to send, and this was clarified, send a negotiating team to Istanbul and resume talks. However, Zelensky was not happy about this, so Zelensky did what all internet tough guys do, and he challenged Putin to an IRL fight. I will be in Turkey this Thursday, May 15th, and I expect Putin to come to Turkey as well, personally. I hope that this time Putin won't be looking for excuses as to why he can't make it. We are ready to talk to end this war. Thursday, Turkey. Zelensky's most trusted confidant, chief of staff Yermak, goaded Moscow on his Telegram channel, adding, "What about Putin? Is he afraid? We'll see." So... yeah, so I know it's technically not an IRL fight. I count this as an IRL fight. I mean, this has all the hallmarks of an IRL fight. It's like, look, we don't want to actually solve the problem, so we're just going to meet face to face and scream at each other and beat each other up to settle the beef. This is this is like internet shit. This is like blood sports, like Andy fighting Tonka Saw. It's like, Andy's like, I'm going to go to Knoxville, Tennessee. And if Putin doesn't show up, then he's a loser. Then he's like a coward. Then I win. And this is somehow like a big W for me. So Istanbul, okay. So Putin never said or suggested he was going to Istanbul. He just said they need to start direct talks. Zelensky and the Western media interpret this as Putin saying that he was going to personally go to Istanbul and talk to Zelensky in person in the next couple of days. And when he didn't do that, it was viewed as being... am I exaggerating, guys? Like, this is like internet tough guy level shit. Like what is this? Zelensky's threatening, like, I want to see you in Istanbul now. It's like some WWE shit. So basically, Zelensky just kept trash talking Putin and said that if Putin didn't show up and went back on his challenge, then Putin would be the Tonka Saw of geopolitics. Now, Putin has a black belt in judo, so I think he'd probably beat Zelensky in a fight. Yeah, and Jake Snake makes the point that I'm trying to make with all of this. And as always with this, I know I'm making fun of like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people dying, and I'm mocking them, and I'm saying that this is like a circus, but it is. Like, it's how these people are fucking acting. Like, you have insane stuff like this going on. We have like Trump on Truth Social running the world by his all cap boomer posts. We have the mineral deal that no one even knows what it is. We have the fucking Bravery Express, that cringe. We have Zelensky threatening to kill the president of China and Brazil. We've got this funeral ambush. We've got like what is this nonsense? Like, these are supposed to be adults, and it's reached the level of like the sector. And like Zelensky cut a. I didn't want to put it in because it wasn't that interesting. It was like Zelensky basically like cut a promo on his nightly address where he's like, "Be there, Putin. I'm gonna be there," and like he's. So, like, you can say what you want about Putin, and there's lots of things you can say about him. Does Putin ever do shit like this? Like, does Putin go on social media and challenge people to fights, or make all-cap boomer posts, or, I don't know, like, just run his government in a completely chaotic, bizarre fashion like this? Like, I don't know. I'm not an American, but I would kind of be embarrassed. Like, I do think, to be fair, Trump's heart is in the right place. I do think he legitimately does want the killing to stop out of a genuine humanitarian moral concern for all the young people who are dying. But it's, I don't know. I just, and once again, this might be that I'm Canadian. This might be that I'm upper middle class or something. I just don't think you should be running like your country's geopolitical position from Truth Social. Like, I don't think it should be a scenario where your Secretary of State is going out and making a statement, and then you do a random post that completely and totally undermines it. M. Still Smith, I did a video a couple days ago that I'd actually recommend you go and check out, where I talk about liberal universalism and how it applies to the Russo-Ukraine war, and it explains a lot of this stuff. It explains a lot of this stuff, like, very well, and I'm going to do a bigger video about it, but basically it comes from a Manichaean idea that Putin is 100% evil, Zelensky is 100% good, and the actual facts on the ground don't really matter. So it's just, it's sad with Trump, because I think that, sorry, I'm just going to slightly digress. I think Trump has done a lot of good stuff in his time in office. I think he's done like immense things like dismantling DEI, restored that there's only two genders, dismantled U.S. aid, stopped giving like money to left-wing NGOs. And I could go on and on. Like, if you go through the list of executive orders Trump's done, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. The architecture one that says federal buildings should prioritize classical or specialty local architectural styles. I think he did an executive order to remove all the pause stuff from the museums in Washington. He's done a lot of good stuff. It's just the general lack of organization, coherency, and stuff like that, I think really undermines it. I'll get back on topic in a second, but I think, to me, like, the ultimate example of Trump's problem, I think, is Liberation Day. Like, so for those of you who don't remember, Liberation Day was when Trump decided he was just going to put heavy tariffs on basically the whole world. And it became just this massive ordeal where it looked like they came up with the formula of how much they were going to give the tariffs based on like a ChatGPT prompt or something like that. And so, like, with no negotiation, no warning, nothing, they just imposed massive tariffs on like most of the world. And this was Liberation Day. This was getting back at the people who had taken advantage of America. And then they did that, and then the tariffs were almost immediately paused. And then some of them were paused, and then some of them resumed, and then some of them weren't paused. And it was like went back and forth and back and forth. And then China and the US did this whole thing when the whole like we're gonna put a trillion, like a gajillion percent tariff on this, and just I don't even know where that is now. But it's just, dude, if you're gonna do something, stick by it. I mean, Trump ran on being like a decisive leader who could make decisions, and when he just constantly like flip flops and doesn't like present any kind of coherent like front, and it's clear he doesn't talk to his staff a lot of the time, I just think it really undermines him. And I think there's a lot of like good things that Trump's done and that he could be doing, but I just think like the constant circus is at least is somewhat his fault, and I just kind of wish it would stop. As someone who likes most of what he does, it's very frustrating to have to watch this. Anyways, so here's the irony. The irony is, okay, I'm gonna, okay. Let's do can I do a poll here? Okay. Well, I can't do a poll in OBS. Okay. So press 1 if you think that Zelensky showed up in Istanbul to the arena, that he made weight, and that he was there to fight Putin. Press 2 if Zelensky didn't show up to Istanbul. Just going to give it a second for that. So press 1 if, type 1 in the chat if Zelensky showed up in Istanbul after he talked big, and press 2 if he didn't show up. I'm seeing a lot of 2s here. You guys don't trust the Z-Man? You guys don't think the internet tough guy would show up at the fight that he demanded? Well, you'd be right. So neither Zelensky nor his negotiating team ever actually went to Istanbul. He went to Ankara and had a 3-hour meeting with Erdogan. To the best of our knowledge, Erdogan just chewed him out and I think told him like that he was like retarded and that he had to go to Istanbul, or that he had to go to Istanbul and he had to send in a negotiating team there. So Zelensky did not send a negotiation team there or went there. So the Russian delegation showed up, and they just sat there. There was no one to talk to. It was going to start at 10 a.m. Then it got moved to 2 p.m. Then it got moved to 6 p.m. and then it was canceled. There is no Ukrainian delegation. The Russian delegation just sat in the negotiation room all day. Was what wound up happening. I guess this is like a Ralph thing. Like you challenge someone to a fight and then you just don't show up and you're like, ha ha, I trolled you. But apparently like Erdogan and Trump were not happy with this whole thing. So like, no, you're going to have to send a negotiating team. So Zelensky said that he was not going to show up because the negotiating team that Putin sent were nobodies. They were lightweights. Like, we need a Putin-Zelensky face-off like Neo and Smith at the end of Matrix Revolutions. If we're not going to have a Neo-Smith face-off, then there's no way that we can even do this. It's the only way to do it. So if you look at the people that Russia sent, and I decided to look into it myself, so Putin's professional negotiation team. So the complaint is that Lavrov wasn't on it, and Putin wasn't on it. So the team included the deputy Russian foreign minister, the deputy minister of defense, the head of Russian military intelligence, and one of Putin's top aides, who was the head of negotiation in 2022. So that is the team that Putin sent. But Lavrov wasn't there, and Shoigu wasn't there, and he wasn't there. So this was a team like not worth even meeting. These were like literally nobodies, as it's called. We'll get into like why that's retarded in a second. So we're just going to read this Zelensky quote. Russia has once again demonstrated that it is not determined to end the war by sending a delegation of representatives of a rather weak level. Moreover, such a Russian approach is a manifestation of disrespect for the world, for all partners. We are waiting for a clear and strong reaction from the partners, Zelensky wrote on Telegram following his press conference in Cairo. Keep in mind, he didn't go there anyways, but so he's like, I'm only going to talk to Putin. Putin has to come there in person, and we need to fight each other in the back streets of Istanbul. And that's how international diplomacy works. So, yeah. So, reality check. So, Alexander Mercouris, I try to, when I'm taking ideas from people, I try to reference them. Who's from the Duran, who has a history of being of doing negotiations and stuff like that, said, and I've heard other people say this, negotiating something is really difficult. There's a lot of things that have to be like taken into account. Like, what about the prisoners of war? When does it start? How are you going to monitor the ceasefire line? How do you monitor like the ceasefire line? I don't know. I can't think of a lot, but there's just a lot of like logistical details that go into this, and a lot of these things can take like months, if not years, to go through. And the reality of the situation is like Putin doesn't have like 3 months to just sit there at a negotiating table in Istanbul and like talk to Zelensky. It's not like the idea that they have, and once again, because they think everything is a movie, that they're going to go there, they're going to have their fight. Whoever wins gets their maximalist objectives, I guess. Like, the leaders only really come in at the end after the agreement's actually been done. Like, treaties can be hundreds of pages long. So Putin was like, okay, I'm going to send the professional negotiation team, and then they can talk to the Ukrainian negotiation team, and they can just get to work on that. But no. So Trump is now getting like desperate to meet with Putin. He has like this notice me senpai thing. So he was like, I might go to Istanbul if Putin's there. And then like Putin didn't go to Istanbul. It's like, Putin didn't go to Istanbul because I wasn't there. I got to have a negotiation. It's this narrative, and you're starting to see this from Rubio and a lot of the other like Trump guys, and even the Europeans, that Trump has to have a meeting with Putin. If Trump and Putin can just sit down, this will resolve anything. Trump will just look into Putin's eyes, and he'll be like, let's make a deal. And Putin will be like, yeah, let's make a deal. And it's like, you know, I had a book ghostwritten called The Art of the Deal that I put my face on. And Putin's like, yeah, I read it, Trump. I have it in my desk next to my Bible in the Kremlin. I have a first edition Russian one copy of Art of the Deal, and I read it every night before I go to bed. And the deal that you offered me is just too good, because you are the best deal maker in the world. You're the best deal maker in the world, because there's lots of evidence, I guess, that that's a thing, because you had a book ghost written for you. So, yeah, he can just end the war. So that's the new narrative, that they're going to have to, like, that the treaty's going to be like the climax of a movie, where it's going to be like a 15-minute like speech by Zelensky or something, and then Putin's going to break down and cry, and the audience is going to clap, and it's going to resolve. Okay. So, in conclusion, the entire thing continues the general trend of the UCU. The collective West is led by people who think that they are in a movie and act accordingly. We have reached levels of IBS, aka the sector levels of nonsense. Russia's probably going to stay in Istanbul and do the fake negotiation because Brazil and China wanted them to. But I think at the whole, they're just like, these guys aren't serious. These guys don't have their shit together. This is just going to be settled on the battlefield. I think is the general view that Putin has. So that actually took way less time than I thought. I guess it does pay to do show prep. So yeah, that's the whole tale of it. Hopefully I didn't oversell it too much. I thought there was a lot of like twists and turns in this arc. Like I said, it took a while to get like all of this together and to get the timeline down. But it's just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here, guys? It's embarrassing. Anyways. Let's see here. So, I don't know. I guess we have a couple minutes. Does anybody want to ask me anything, or maybe something that we'd want to expand upon? That was pretty much what I had for the show. Let's see. Does anyone believe that Russia intends to attack a European country? The Baltic states do. And I'm worried that at some point they're going to try to do something to try to provoke Russia to attack them, because they really hate Russia and they really want to go to war with Russia. Which I can understand why they hate Russia, but they never should have let the Baltic states into NATO. That was a big mistake. That was not a good idea. Once again, I get why they hate Russia. I'm sympathetic to it. But you can't let those people in. They're nuts. Like, they will try and do whatever it takes to start a war with Russia, because they want revenge for the Soviet Union. And that's just, yeah. Poland, I think, will be able to hold out. It's just, I don't get, like, what would Putin have to gain by invading Europe? Russia doesn't have the troops to occupy Europe, even like Eastern Europe. He doesn't have that, like, it just does, like, to go through urban areas. I don't, like, see what there would be to gain. Like, the only part of Europe that maybe Moldova, although Moldova is not part of NATO, I don't think. So maybe Moldova and Ukraine, but I don't, like, do they even have, like, Russia only shares a land border with Poland and Kaliningrad. I don't know what it is that they'd want to grab. This isn't the Soviet Union. This isn't the Soviet Union anymore. I mean, Russia's a lot smaller. Its military is nowhere near the size that it used to be. So... yeah, it used to be. Yes, the Baltic places are trying to do anti-Russian policies. So it's... the problem is that the Russians had kind of flooded a lot of Eastern Europe with Russians. So in a lot of these countries, like in the Baltic states, I think they're like 20-30% of the population. The population, in order to get rid of that fifth column. So, Russia may try to integrate with Belarus. I mean, in Transnistria, yeah. I mean, that's definitely possible. Neither of those countries are in NATO. Okay, so I'll just go over it quickly. I don't feel like pulling the thing up. So, the initial offer at Istanbul 2022 was denazification. Ukraine had to limit its military to a certain size. It had to pledge to never join NATO. They were, however, willing to allow Ukraine to join the EU so long as they didn't join NATO. The Donbass would not become part of Russia, become independent. It would become a autonomous part of Ukraine. I think Russian was going to be the second official language. Basically, just rights for the Russians, autonomy for Donbass, limitations on Ukraine's military size. They said the issue of Crimea will be decided at a later date, and that was what the original. What is the fifth column? The Russians there. The Russians are like a significant portion of the population, the Baltic states, and they're worried that that's going to be used as a casus belli to invade them, because there were significant German populations in a bunch of areas, like Bohemia with the Sudetenland, and that was used as a pretext by Nazi Germany in order to invade. So I think that's the fear part of it. So the current proposal, and Putin made this last year, is as follows. Ukraine will recognize Russian ownership over Crimea, Zaporozhye, Kherson, Luhansk, and Donetsk. So the four regions plus Crimea will be recognized as part of as Russia and renounce their claims to it. Ukraine will have to limit the size of its military probably to a level below what it was initially going to be. Ukraine will have to amend its constitution and pledge to never join NATO. They will have to disarm and liquidate the various ultranationalist groups, unban the Russian Orthodox Church, end all Ukrainization efforts on the Russian population. I think that's it. I think that's what the deal is that is being offered at the moment. So, Constantine, you can tell me if I'm missing something. Which I think is is a tough deal, but I honestly think Ukraine should take it. Because they're not going to, they've already lost most of that territory. They're not going to get it back. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it. Do people want me to maybe cut this up into little clips or segments or something? Because I can do that. I mean, I think the whole thing was not particularly long, so it's probably not necessary. But I think I'm just going to end it there. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the new format, let me know. Please.